mouth breather. I spoke of miracles in my last video, and I'm bringing up the subject again. Still not actually believing in such things, but using the concept rhetorically. We look around at the world that we have today, at least those of us who live in the West, and if we are at all self-aware, we have to realize that we have it pretty good, at least on a superficial level. Not everybody has a lot of money to play around with, but even people who are relatively poor here would be relatively rich elsewhere in the world. It's uncommon for the vast majority of people to be exposed to violence on a day-to-day basis. There are obviously exceptions. Some people live in terrible neighborhoods that are filled with crime, but you don't have an entire country full of crime. We don't have whole states that are run openly by mobsters or warlords or anything like that. So America is doing reasonably well. Europe is doing reasonably well. Again, all of this is surface level at the very least. So the point that I'm trying to get at right now is that the technological and social organizational miracles that have brought us all the nice things that we have, and access to the infinite knowledge of the internet, streaming music, TV, blockbuster movies, you could go back in time to when the movie was first invented and show someone a movie from 10 years ago, and it would absolutely blow their mind. They wouldn't even be able to comprehend the idea that an artificially created reality could look that good, could look as good as what halfway decent CGI has become in this day and age. We have video games that create entire digital worlds of virtual reality that people from all over the planet can get together in, and World of Warcraft kind of thing. That one has almost clunky, passé graphics by modern standards. There's something newer like the latest Witcher game. I'm not sure if that's multiplayer, but the sophistication of our entertainment technology is absolutely jaw-droppingly spectacular, and our ancestors would not have even been able to conceptualize of something so incredibly cool and awesome and amazing and beautifully life-affirming. And so, if they looked at our world, they would probably say it was a miracle. But what they would not know is that all these glorious accomplishments of the modern world have carried a terrible price. They don't understand the trade-off that we get, and I could go on and on at great length about all the evils of the modern world. We are strip mining the environment in ways that have long-term consequences we can't even begin to guess at, because we haven't been recording the history for long enough to be able to spot the trend of what we're doing now. We're filling the ocean with microscopic plastic particles that are getting into the very cells of our food animals, and then causing all sorts of genetic damage and resulting in things like cancer and other severe diseases that are incredibly complicated, and you have to have the advanced medical school understanding to be able to begin dealing with them. So there's so many things about the modern world that are that have moved us away from the things that kept human beings alive and functional as a society for thousands of years. We are in this brave new world that is fundamentally beyond our comprehension. Our brains are just not adapted to be capable of dealing with what's going on now, and we are encouraged to where I immediately got on this is the glow that's on my face right now is a laptop computer connected to the internet, where I'm getting free music off of YouTube, and it's great and wonderful. And I'm not paying a price for it, and it's very easy for me to feel good about that. But the bottom line is there is a price for it. Someone is paying for it, even if it isn't me. And the thing that I think is the most disturbing about our world, the environmental stuff and the medical stuff that I mentioned before might be worse for us in the long term, in terms of like us dying or not being able to survive as individuals or as a species. But like possibly even worse is the ideological threat to our very ability to conceptualize the meaning of life in ways and like be responsible citizens, because we now live in this world where people think that they can get something for nothing, and they don't realize the cost that they're imposing on other people who they will never meet, and they don't think about it. So, the entire economy of the West is basically a parasite exploiting the entire economy of the third world. That's an extreme oversimplification, but that kind of thing is going on over and over and over again. There's so many people who are getting fat off of the fruits of our culture, and then so many other people who are working their fingers to the bone in order to pay for it, and often individuals who grew up as one end up turning into the other and not being able to even cope with the transition. And it's all because society as a whole has gotten away from the idea of honesty and transparency and personal accountability and fair play and everybody doing their part, everybody accepting that they, we used to, and it wasn't just, we used to indoctrinate children with this kind of ideology and sort of program it into their brains, and a few of them would rebel against it and be very miserable, but a lot of them grew up to become productive, happy citizens. And then the other half of the equation, the carrot, the stick to that particular carrot, is we harshly punished people who did who engaged in dishonorable conduct, who were caught in a lie. If it used to be, if a politician was found to not fulfill his campaign promises, there was no hope that he could possibly hold on to his power. Nowadays, it's more about how rich he is and how much of a kind of a lockdown he has on the machinations of the political system. If he is owed favors by the right people or has deep enough pockets to pay off the right people, then even in the face of a huge amount of public outcry, he can still hold on to his power. This potentially goes all the way up to the U.S. president. I have serious doubts as to, whether it ends up being Trump or Biden. Either way, it's a person who has been in the White House before and has been involved to some extent, whether 4 years as president or 8 years as VP, has been involved in some extent in things that have been questionable in some ways and beneficial in others. There are all manner of complex issues that I don't really have time to research, but the bottom line is life has not been a cotton candy paradise under the influence of either of these politicians, and yet here they are, pretty much guaranteed to have one or the other of them become our next president, even though a huge amount of the population is probably at least somewhat unhappy with the way they're doing their jobs. And even if that percentage is less than 50%, it's still a huge block of the country who are basically voiceless in our so-called democracy, because there aren't enough of them to form a power block, so they have no ability to make their voice heard on the political stage. I'm all over the place with this topic tonight. I just, I had to get the basic concept out there that we have all these nice things, but they don't come free. Somebody has to pay for them somewhere along the line, and it might be other countries, it might be other people in our own country, it might be our own past or future self, it might be some very rarefied thing, like right now my quote-unquote free music is being supported by ads that are being fed to me by the YouTube ad algorithm. But I'm not actually patronizing those businesses, so they're wasting their money advertising to me, and so they're not really getting anything out of it. So their money is being drained into YouTube's coffers, at my instigation. So I'm like an unwitting accomplice to one giant corporation robbing another giant corporation. It's kind of sickening. There's I could discontinue using YouTube, but that would only make me miserable. That would only leave me with fewer ways to cope with the exigencies of life. So that's the sickening thing about the modern world, is that everything has become so diffuse and so diluted that the individual has almost no power to do anything for good or for ill, and we're so removed from responsibility for everything that we're involved in. It's hard to even begin knowing how you could possibly solve these problems because of just how attenuated everything is. But it's once upon a time it was a fairly simple proposition. You worked to earn money, and then you spent your money on things that you absolutely needed, and things like music or entertainment of other varieties, or luxury products that aren't necessary to preserve your life but make it more pleasant. You could afford a small number of those things, but now in the existence of things like credit cards, you can run up an infinite debt, slathering yourself with so many luxuries that you become completely spoiled, and you don't appreciate the things that you have. You just take it for granted, but you flip out if they're taken away, and they will be taken away because eventually the bill comes due. All the debts will eventually have to be repaid, if not by you, then by somebody else, and if somebody else is paying your debt, then it's possible that eventually some other person's debt is going to come due for you, and you'll be screwed. So it's just a big mess, and we can be superficially happy very easily, but I think we have an obligation to think about the reasons why maybe we shouldn't.